I think I messed up. What happened that night still haunts me, and I can't shake the feeling that something was watching. We've all been there, lying in bed, the world swallowed by darkness as the old house creaks and sighs around us. We tell ourselves it's just the wind, the pipes, the house settling, nothing more. But sometimes it's something else entirely. Tonight, I'm sharing the night I was sure I was alone until something impossible happened, and a chill crept into my bones. It started with a single inexplicable event, the television turning on by itself, whispering. The air seemed to shiver, and that was only the beginning. Are you ready to find out what really happened? It was a Tuesday, I believe. The kind of Tuesday that feels like it could stretch on forever, with the world outside shrouded in darkness and the relentless rain battering the windows. Each drop struck the glass with a sharp, insistent rhythm, like 1,000 tiny hammers tapping out a warning only I could hear. The city lights blurred behind the curtain of water, turning the familiar view into something almost unrecognizable, as if the world itself was being washed away and rebuilt in the storm. I was home alone, nestled into the corner of the couch with a well-worn book in my hands, trying my best to lose myself in its pages. The storm outside was impossible to ignore, its howling wind and thunderous rain a constant reminder of the world beyond my walls. I remember thinking how the house felt, both safe and exposed, a fragile bubble of warmth in the middle of a wild, chaotic night. My wife, Sarah, was away on a business trip, her suitcase still sitting by the door from her hurried departure that morning. The absence of her presence was palpable, a quiet emptiness that seemed to echo through every room. I found myself glancing at her favourite chair, half expecting to see her there, smiling at me over the rim of her mug. Now, I do enjoy my own company, and there's a certain peace in solitude, but there is a vast difference between relishing a quiet evening and being truly alone in an empty house, especially on a night like that. The silence when it came was almost oppressive, so thick it felt like a living thing, pressing in from every shadowy corner. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the wind seemed amplified, as if the house itself was restless. So I did what any sensible person might do when faced with the unnerving quiet. I reached for the remote and put on a bit of background noise. The familiar click of the buttons was oddly comforting, a small act of control in a night that felt anything but ordinary. I considered a true crime podcast, but quickly dismissed the idea. The last thing I needed was to fill my head with stories of unsolved mysteries and late-night intruders. Instead, I settled for some mindless sitcom reruns, the canned laughter and familiar voices filling the room with a sense of normalcy. It was a small comfort, but on a night like that, even the smallest comforts mattered. Whispering. I always feel safer with a little noise. It's as if the sound can keep the darkness at bay, or at least make the night seem a little less endless. I must have dozed off, for the next thing I knew the television was off, and the room was shrouded in utter darkness. The silence was so complete, it pressed in on me from all sides, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen and the distant ticking of a wall clock. I blinked, disoriented, trying to recall how long I'd been asleep, or if I'd even meant to drift off at all. The air felt heavy, as if the night itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I glanced at my watch. 3 o'clock in the morning. The witching hour. The time when, according to old tales, the veil between worlds is at its thinnest, and strange things are said to walk the earth. My heart gave a little flutter, and I found myself listening for sounds that weren't there, half expecting to hear footsteps in the hallway or a whisper from the shadows. I shivered, though whether from the chill or something far less ordinary, I could not say. The temperature in the room seemed to have dropped suddenly, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and makes your skin prickle with goosebumps. I pulled the blanket tighter around my shoulders, but it did little to ward off the sensation that something unseen was watching me from the darkness. My breath came out in a visible puff, and I wondered if I was imagining things, or if the night truly held secrets I was never meant to uncover. Rising to unplug the television, phantom power bills being a persistent worry, something peculiar occurred. My footsteps seemed unnaturally loud on the floorboards, echoing in the stillness. I hesitated, hand hovering over the plug, suddenly unsure if I wanted to touch anything at all. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I felt a strange compulsion to look over my shoulder, as if I might catch a glimpse of something lurking just out of sight. The television flickered back to life, not to the sitcom, mind you. The screen glowed with an unnatural brightness, casting long, shifting shadows across the walls. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared, transfixed, unable to look away. The familiar comfort of late-night reruns was gone, replaced by something far more unsettling. It was merely static, snowy black and white fuzz, the sort that once signalled a faulty antenna. The sound was a low, insistent hiss, like 1,000 whispers layered atop one another, just beyond the edge of comprehension. I felt as though the static itself was trying to communicate, to reach out from the screen and pull me in. Yet I had cable. Or at least I did back then. There was no reason for static, no logical explanation for what I was seeing. I checked the connections, my hands trembling, but everything was as it should be. The realization sent a fresh wave of unease through me, as if the rules of the world had quietly shifted while I slept, whispering. Most would have fled the house at that very moment. The sensible thing would have been to grab my keys, run out the door, and not look back until the sun was up. But fear and fascination are strange bedfellows, and I found myself rooted in place, unable to tear my eyes from the flickering screen. But I remained rooted to the spot, curiosity outweighing fear. Something deep inside urged me to stay, to see what would happen next, as if the night itself had chosen me to witness whatever secret it was about to reveal. A shiver ran down my spine. It wasn't just the cold air in the room or the way the night seemed to press in from every window. It was something deeper, a sensation that seemed to crawl beneath my skin, making every hair stand on end. I felt as if I was being watched, as if something unseen was lurking just out of sight, waiting for me to notice. Perhaps it was merely a power surge. These things do happen after all. Old houses are full of quirks, flickering lights, creaking floors, appliances that seem to have a mind of their own. I tried to reassure myself, to find comfort in the ordinary explanations, but the uneasy feeling wouldn't leave me. The television, silent and dark just moments before, now hummed with a low electric tension that seemed to fill the entire room. I reached to unplug it once more, but my hand, it froze in place. My fingers hovered just above the cord, trembling. It was as if an invisible force held me back, a warning whispering in my ear that I should not touch it. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment I couldn't move at all. The static on the screen, it was moving, not just flickering, but shifting, swirling in patterns that made no sense. It was hypnotic, almost mesmerizing, drawing my gaze even as every instinct screamed at me to look away. It swirled and pulsed, almost as if it were alive. The patterns twisted and writhed, forming shapes that seemed to reach out from the glass, beckoning me closer. I could feel the energy in the room shift, growing heavier, more oppressive with every passing second. Shadows began to dance at the edge of the screen, indistinct shapes that sent a primal fear crawling up my throat. They flickered and twisted, never quite forming into anything I could name, but always there, just at the edge of my vision. It was as if the darkness itself had come alive, eager to spill out into the room. You might think it was sleep deprivation or perhaps an overactive imagination. After all, it was late, and I hadn't slept well in days. My mind was foggy, my thoughts scattered. Maybe I was just seeing things, letting my fears get the better of me. I told myself the very same thing. I tried to laugh it off, to convince myself that I was being ridiculous, but the laughter died in my throat, replaced by a growing sense of unease. The room felt colder now, the shadows deeper and more menacing. Yet deep within, a cold, hard knot of dread began to form in my stomach. This was not right. My instinct screamed at me to run, to get as far away from that screen as possible, but I was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear and fascination in equal measure, whispering, "The shadows. Oh, it's the shadows that truly haunt me. Even now I can feel their presence lingering in the corners of my mind, waiting for the lights to go out once more." And then it happened. A voice. Faint at first, barely audible over the hissing static. I strained to hear, my heart pounding in my ears. It was a woman's voice, high-pitched and thin, as though someone were struggling to be heard from another world. I took a step closer to the television, mesmerized and terrified in equal measure. The voice grew a touch louder, yet the words remained elusive, just out of reach. It was like eavesdropping on a conversation from the other side of a thick wall, muffled, distorted, but undeniably present. Whispering, "You're braver than I am. I would have been hiding under the covers. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the voice changed. It went from a faint whisper to a blood-curdling scream. The sound was piercing, filled with such raw terror that it felt like a physical blow. I stumbled back, my hand flying to my mouth to stifle my own cry of surprise and fear. The scream went on, echoing through the room, seeming to claw at the edges of my sanity. My blood ran cold, every instinct screaming at me to run, to escape. But I was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by a fear so profound it felt as though my very bones had turned to ice. A gasp, followed by silence. The room seemed to shrink around me, the walls pressing ever closer as the screaming echoed through the darkness. The shadows on the screen writhed and twisted, morphing into grotesque shapes that clawed at the glass, desperate to escape their electronic prison. I stood there motionless, paralyzed by terror. Time lost all meaning, each second stretched into an eternity. The clock on the wall seemed to melt and warp, every tick a slow, agonizing reminder that I was trapped in this nightmare. The scream filled the room, a vortex of terror threatening to pull me under, suffocating and relentless. Silence. Just when I thought I could take no more, that the fear would consume me entirely, the screaming stopped. The TV went dead. Silence descended upon the room, heavy and absolute. I stood there for a moment, chest heaving, heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. Then, slowly, cautiously, I approached the TV. Reaching out with a trembling hand, I turned it off. The room was plunged into darkness, but it felt different now. The air was thick with a palpable sense of dread, a lingering chill that seemed to seep into my bones. A shaky breath. What? What was that? I never found out what caused the TV to turn on that night, or what the source of that horrifying scream was. Some things are best left unexplained, but one thing's for certain. It made me question everything I thought I knew about the line between our world and whatever lies beyond. Have you ever experienced something similar, something that defied explanation, that left you questioning your sanity? Tell me about it in the comments below, because sometimes the most terrifying thought of all is knowing that we might not be as alone as we think. I don't think I'll be sleeping tonight, will you? If you crave more chilling tales from Stories from the Dark, don't wait. Hit that subscribe button now, share this video with your bravest friends, and follow for more. The next story could be even closer to home. Don't miss out. The darkness is always waiting. And remember, we post new true horror videos every week. Subscribe so you never miss a scare.